He didn't want you here. Go back. My son said it at the curb, not meeting my eyes. The trunk still yawning open, my suitcase half lifted in his hands, as if the weight of me had suddenly doubled. The air smelled of wet pine and gasoline. Somewhere a dog barked like it knew a secret. I had flown all day with a paper crown tucked in my purse and a small compass in a velvet pouch. 8 years old, I thought. 8 is the age a boy starts wanting to know where north is. I am 76. I do not do scenes. My knees ache when I walk fast, and my pride aches when I am told to walk away. But neither has killed me yet. All right, Daniel, I said. His name fit in my mouth like a stone I'd carried since he was born, warmed by time, heavy when I swallow. He looked past me at the rideshare driver, embarrassed the way men get when they choose cruelty and call it logistics. Mom, he murmured, softer. Milo said it would be too complicated. He's overwhelmed. Kara thinks, I heard you the first time. I did not look toward the porch light or the silhouette I knew was my daughter-in-law, watching through the tinted glass like a weather vane that only points toward herself. I reached into the trunk, took my suitcase, and set it down on the damp pavement. The driver cleared his throat. Seattle rain is a fine mist that finds your scalp and thoughts. It had started while he spoke, polite the way northern storms pretend to be. I had chosen a motel near the lake because it was cheap and not tragic. The sign said, Harbor Rest, which is a promise you can measure against a night of sleep. Please, Daniel said suddenly, as if the word might wash the rest away. Don't make this harder. For whom, I didn't ask. I have learned that questions are a kind of door you offer, and some people only walk through to steal the last thing you didn't lock. I lifted the suitcase, felt the slice of weight settle into my shoulder, and straightened. Happy birthday to your son, I said. Tell him his grandmother flew across a continent to see his cake and decided to leave him the sky instead. It made no sense out loud and perfect sense inside me. The driver met my eyes in the rear view, and, in that small mirror, I saw the woman I am, gray hair pinned without fuss, a navy coat, a mouth that has carried both lullabies and goodbyes. Airport? He asked softly. Not yet, I said. Harbor Rest. I gave the address. Daniel stepped back. The porch light blinked off, then on. The house looked expensive in the way new money does. Everything glossy, nothing rooted. There was a banner taped inside the big front window. I read it without reading it. I have baked more cakes than I have cried. That balance used to feel like virtue. Lately, it feels like a ledger no one else remembers. The car rolled away. My hands shook only after we turned the corner. I pressed my palms together and told them to behave. Out the window, the neighborhood slid by. Wet cedar, careful lawns, a kid's bike dropped on its side like joy that forgot to be put away. I thought of Milo's small hand, which still fits perfectly in mine in every memory I own. 8 years ago, when he was an hour old, Daniel cried into my hair and called me Mom, like it meant rescue. I remember that. I also remember checks written with his name in the memo and silence cashed in return. The motel room had a quilt patterned with sailboats and an honest smell of old soap. I locked the door, set the suitcase on the luggage rack, and sat on the edge of the bed. The paper crown crinkled in my purse, accusing and brave. I took it out, set it on the nightstand, and placed the little compass beside it. North is not up, my father used to say. North is the courage to move when you are asked to disappear. I boiled water in the dented kettle by the sink. The free tea was bitter, but I have swallowed worse. My phone buzzed once, an unknown number that felt known, and then stopped. I did not answer. I do not do scenes. I do not beg for scraps at doors I helped build. I sipped the tea, wrote "Happy Birthday, my North Finder" inside a blank card, and slid the compass into its pouch. Outside, the rain stitched the lake to the night in tiny, steady seams. Somewhere, a boy blew out 8 candles, and a room pretended the wind did it. I washed my cup, turned off the lamp, and lay down. My body ached the way truth does when it's finally allowed to sit upright. I closed my eyes and, for once, did not pray to be included. I prayed to be steady. The motel curtains leaked a pale gray light when I opened my eyes. Sleep had come in pieces, the way old photographs come, edges torn, faces missing. I brewed the coffee sachet they'd left by the sink, bitter as punishment, and sat at the small desk. My suitcase gaped open on the chair. I took out a folder I had tucked beneath clothes, bills, check stubs, transfer slips, reminders of how many times I had played savior in Daniel's life. A flight here, a car payment there, hospital bills for Milo when he was 2 and had pneumonia. I traced my finger over one line, $4,200, tuition deposit, Seattle Day School. That had been my doing. Daniel had said he couldn't cover it in time, that the boy might lose his spot. I wired the money in an hour, proud of myself for being swift. That was 6 years ago. Milo had hugged me that fall in his too big blazer, and for a moment I thought maybe my son had seen me not as a wallet, but as a mother. I folded the papers neatly. I was tired of proving my love in numbers. My husband used to say, "Ruth, affection is not an invoice." He's been gone 21 years, yet his voice still arrives like a bell in fog. By 9, I was dressed in slacks and a cardigan and walking the half-mile to a branch of Cascade Community Bank. The manager was younger than Daniel, with a bright tie and careful manners. "Mrs. Alden, how can I help you?" "I need to stop some transfers," I said. My voice was calm, like I was ordering bread. "And I need advice on establishing a trust for my grandson." He blinked, typed on his screen, and soon a list of standing payments appeared. The total startled even me. Monthly checks for Daniel's mortgage, an automatic debit for their SUV, a credit card balance I'd been reducing for over a year. "Would you like to suspend all of them?" he asked. "Yes, effective today." He hesitated. "You should be aware your son is a co-signer on one of these accounts." "I'm aware," I said. "Remove his authority. I'll sign what I must." It took 40 minutes of paperwork, but at the end, I left the bank lighter as if someone had untied ropes from my chest. The young manager held the door for me. "You're protecting your legacy," he said gently. I almost laughed. Legacy was too grand a word. What I wanted was fairness. Outside, drizzle misted my hair. Across the street was a law office, brass letters on the window, J. Hernandez and Associates. I walked in without planning to. The receptionist offered me water. 15 minutes later, a woman about 40 with firm hands and kind eyes was explaining the mechanics of an educational trust. "It will be in Milo's name, with you as initial trustee. No one else, not your son, not his wife, will touch these funds unless you authorize it. College, enrichment programs, travel, anything you specify." I listened. I nodded. For the first time in years, the money I'd scraped and saved with my late husband felt like a seed instead of fodder. By noon, I was back at the motel, damp and tired, but steadier. My phone showed 6 missed calls. Daniel, Daniel again, then Kara. No messages from Milo. I set it face down on the nightstand. I brewed another cup of thin coffee, opened my notebook, and wrote, "Mortgage. Canceled. SUV. Cancelled. Credit card. Cancelled. Milo's trust. In process. I drew a line under it, heavy and final. Around 2, the phone rang again. I let it buzz until the voicemail picked up. Daniel's voice came through thin and strained. "Mom, we need to talk. Things are complicated. Please don't do anything rash." I closed my eyes. His words were the same ones he'd used when he was 16 and wrecked his first car. Complicated. Rash. Always a storm of his making, always my umbrella. I didn't call back. Instead, I walked to the lake, sat on a wet bench, and watched children in bright jackets throw bread to ducks. I thought of Milo, who loved maps, who once asked me if every train track pointed to a secret. I took the small compass from my pocket. The needle trembled, but never lost north. When I returned to the motel, there was a knock on my door. Not Daniel, not Kara. A neighborly knock, uncertain but polite. I opened it to find a woman holding a brown paper bag. "Excuse me," she said. "The manager said you just checked in. I run the cafe next door. We always give newcomers a muffin on the house." It was blueberry. I thanked her. Later, eating it at the little desk, I thought, kindness doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it arrives warm in a paper bag. That night, I wrote Milo a letter. Not about betrayal, not about money. Just, "Dear Milo, when you look for north, remember it is not where people point you, but where your own heart steadies. Love, Grandma." I sealed it with the compass inside. Tomorrow, I would decide how to deliver it. Tonight, I would sleep. The morning began with rain sharp enough to sound like nails on the motel's thin roof. I boiled the kettle, poured the last of the motel tea into a chipped mug, and sat by the small window. Across the parking lot, a man in a neon vest swept puddles toward a drain. He worked steadily, unhurried, as if water could be persuaded instead of forced. I watched him and thought, I, too, must persuade my life into order. I opened the folder of papers again. Receipts, stubs, transfers, handwritten notes from years when Daniel was still just a young man with promises as bright as coins. At the back, I found something I had forgotten. A copy of the check I wrote for his first down payment. 22 years ago. The amount was nearly my entire savings at the time, but I had written it without hesitation. For the future, I'd said. My husband had already been gone a year then. I believed in Daniel as if belief itself could raise a family. The phone buzzed, a text from Kara. "We need to talk. It isn't what you think." No apology, just an opening bid. I deleted it. Instead, I called the bank manager again. "The trust," I said. "I want it irrevocable. For Milo's education only. If he chooses university, fine. If he chooses trade school, fine. But it must be his alone." He confirmed the process was underway, the paperwork ready by next week. "Would you like to name a successor trustee?" "Yes," I said after a pause. "His aunt. My late husband's sister. She lives in Oregon, steady as bedrock. She doesn't bend to anyone's pressure." I felt lighter after that call, almost defiant. Around noon, I walked into town. The sidewalks were slick with pine needles. I ducked into a stationery shop and bought a thick card with an old-fashioned compass, rose printed in gold. I wanted Milo to see it when he opened the envelope. Not as a message of rebellion, but as a sign that his grandmother believed in direction, not excuses. I slipped the card and letter into a padded envelope, wrote his name carefully. Then, in a small neighborhood with painted houses and tidy lawns, I found one of those little free libraries shaped like a birdhouse. I placed the envelope between 2 children's novels. My heart thudded as though I were smuggling treasure. If Daniel wanted me silent, I would be silent in his house, not in his son's world. When I returned to the motel, there was a voicemail waiting. Daniel again. Mom, Kara's upset. Milo doesn't need confusion right now. Please just stay at the motel and we'll sort things out after his birthday. His voice had that tone I knew well, soft, coaxing, but underneath, the iron of command. I didn't answer. At 3, there was another knock. I opened the door cautiously. It was the same cafe woman from yesterday, apron dusted with flour. I hope I'm not intruding, she said. We had extra soup today, mushroom barley. Thought you might want some. She left it on the nightstand, chatted about the weather, then hurried back to work. I ate slowly, the broth thick and earthy. It struck me that strangers were feeding me more warmly than my own family. I washed the bowl, set it neatly on the dresser, and dialed an old number from memory, my lawyer's office back home. A new receptionist answered, but soon I was speaking with Mr. Harris, the same man who helped when my husband died. His voice was rough with age, but still precise. I need to update my will, I told him, and I need to ensure Daniel has no claim to my house or to the trust for Milo. There was a pause, then a sigh. Mrs. Alden, you've been putting this off for years. Yes, I admitted, but now I'm ready. We arranged a meeting for when I returned east. My handwriting shook as I noted the date, but my spine felt straighter. The rain lifted by evening. I walked down to the lakeshore, where children were skipping stones. One boy missed and laughed, his laughter echoing over the water. I thought of Milo's laugh, half shy, half sudden thunder. I wondered what Kara had told him about me, about my absence. Did she say I was tired, ill, or simply unwanted? I sat on a bench until the air grew cold. Then I whispered into the dusk, not a prayer, but a vow. I will not be erased. Back at the motel, the phone rang once more. This time it was Milo's number. My chest jolted. I answered. Grandma? His voice was hushed, like he was hiding in a closet. Dad says you're busy, but are you really in Seattle? I thought I saw your suitcase in the car. I closed my eyes. Yes, sweetheart, I'm here. Then why didn't you come? His whisper trembled with both confusion and hurt. I pressed my hand to the desk, steadying myself. Because some people decided I shouldn't. But listen to me, Milo. You didn't do anything wrong. Not a thing. Silence, then a sniffle. I wanted you here. I told Dad. I know, I said softly. That's enough for me. The line went quiet again. Then he whispered, I miss you. I miss you too, my Northfinder. The call ended abruptly. Perhaps someone walked in. But it was enough. More than enough. I placed the phone on the nightstand, sat on the bed, and let the tears come. Not because I was defeated, but because at last, truth had broken through. Tomorrow, I thought, I would decide my next step. Tonight, I would let myself feel the weight of both loss and freedom. The motel walls were thin. At dawn, I could hear the neighbor's alarm clock, then muffled voices, a shower running. My own body was awake before 6, joints stiff but mind clear. I brewed weak coffee, sat at the desk and reread the list in my notebook. Mortgage, canceled. SUV, canceled. Credit card, canceled. Trust for Milo, in process. Will update, scheduled. The entries looked like stones in a line across a river. I wasn't across yet, but I could see the other bank. By 8, the phone was vibrating again. Daniel. I let it buzz. Then Kara. Then Daniel again. Each time, I watched the screen without touching it. Finally, I turned the ringer off. The silence felt like oxygen. At 9, I walked the mile to a downtown coffee shop. The barista, a young man with arms covered in tattoos, handed me a cappuccino and said, "On the house. My grandmother raised me. Strongest woman I know." I didn't ask how he guessed, but I carried the cup like a medal. I sat by the window, watching umbrellas bob along the sidewalk. In my purse was the envelope for Milo, hidden safely in that little library box. My fingers itched to check if it was still there, but I resisted. Some trust, I told myself, must extend to the world. Halfway through the cappuccino, my phone lit up again. Not Daniel this time, but a number I didn't know. I answered. "Mrs. Alden? This is Claire Monroe from Cascade Bank. Your son was here this morning asking about your accounts. He seemed upset." My chest tightened. "And?" "I couldn't give him access, of course, but I wanted you to know. He may try again." "Thank you," I said quietly. "You did right." When I hung up, my hands were trembling, not with fear, but with recognition. Daniel wasn't just embarrassed by me, he was cornered. Money had been his silent leash on me, and now I had cut it. I walked back to the motel in the drizzle, every step slow but firm. At the front desk, the clerk handed me a note. "A man came by asking for you. Left this." The note was scrawled in Daniel's handwriting. "We need to talk. I'll be back at 7. I sat on the bed, stared at it. The old Ruth would have dreaded the hour, rehearsed explanations, searched for excuses to make his life easier. But the Ruth of today poured herself a glass of water, laid out a clean blouse, and decided, if Daniel wanted words, he would get truth. The hours passed in silence. I ironed the blouse with the motel's small iron, smoothed my skirt, even brushed my hair twice. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, a woman lined and gray, but steady. My husband's eyes looked back at me from memory. Don't bend when you mean to stand. At exactly 7, a knock rattled the door. I opened it. Daniel stood there, collar damp from the rain, jaw tight. "Mom," he began, not meeting my eyes. "We can't do this here. Let's go to dinner. Talk like adults." I shook my head. "We'll talk here. Come in." He stepped inside, glanced around the plain room, and frowned as though the beige wallpaper insulted him. "Why are you here? Why not just fly home?" "Because my grandson turned 8, I said evenly. "And because this city is as much mine as yours while I'm in it." He ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, you're making things harder than they need to be. Milo is confused. Kara's upset. And now the bank is calling me, saying payments are blocked. What's going on?" I folded my hands. "What's going on is simple. I stopped paying for your life." His head jerked up. "You what?" "I stopped the mortgage, the car, the credit cards, all of it. You're a grown man with a job. You'll manage." His mouth opened, then closed again. A flush crept up his neck. "Mom, you don't understand. We've built our budget around your help. You can't just pull the rug out." "I didn't pull it out," I said softly. "I just stopped lying under it." For a moment, he looked like the boy I once held after nightmares. Eyes wide, face pale. But then his jaw hardened. "Kara will never forgive you. You're sabotaging us." "No," I said. "You sabotaged yourself when you told me Milo didn't want me. He called me last night, Daniel. He did want me." He froze. The silence stretched, thick as rope. His eyes flickered away, toward the window, toward anything but mine. I leaned forward. "So, let's be clear. You lied. And you lied to protect what? Your pride? Kara's temper? Your image of control?" His shoulders slumped. For the first time in years, He had no script. "I'm done funding my own erasure," I said. "From now on, what I have goes where I choose, and I choose Milo's future, not your comfort." He swallowed hard, then muttered, "You'll regret this." "Perhaps," I answered, "but regret is lighter than humiliation." He turned, yanked the door open, and walked out into the rain without another word. I closed the door gently, not triumphant, not broken, just steady. My reflection in the window showed a woman alone in a plain motel room. Alone, yes, but no longer erased. The next morning, the motel hallway smelled of burnt toast from the continental breakfast. I poured myself weak coffee and carried it back to the room. My phone blinked with 10 missed calls, 7 from Daniel, 3 from Kara. No message from Milo. That absence stung sharper than the rest. I powered the phone down. Instead, I opened my notebook again. The list of canceled payments looked solid, like a fence finally built. On the next page I wrote, "Things I will no longer do. Wait for invitations that never come. Pretend silence is respect. Pay for what insults me. Trade my dignity for access." The act of writing steadied me more than the coffee did. At 10, I walked down to the lobby. The desk clerk handed me an envelope. "A woman dropped this off for you. Said she was family." Inside was a note in Kara's hand. "Ruth, this isn't how families behave. Come to the house tonight so we can fix this privately. Milo is confused. Please don't involve outsiders." I read it twice. The words were polished, but the tone was command dressed as courtesy. I set it aside. Instead, I called Mr. Harris, my lawyer back home, on speaker. "I want to update the will," I told him, "and finalize Milo's trust." "We'll prepare drafts," he said. "Do you want any provision for Daniel?" "No," I said. "Not unless you count the memories he's already spent." He cleared his throat but didn't argue. "Very well. I'll have everything ready when you return." By noon, the rain had stopped. I walked toward the little cafe next door. The woman behind the counter, her name tag read Nadia, smiled as she handed me soup. "You look lighter today," she said. "Maybe I am," I replied. She nodded. "My grandmother always said, sometimes freedom starts with a canceled check." Her words stayed with me all afternoon. Around 4, as I was reading in the room, my phone vibrated again, this time a video call. Milo's name. My hand shook as I answered. His face filled the screen, cheeks flushed. He was whispering from under a blanket. "Grandma? Are you mad at me?" My chest clenched. "Oh, sweetheart. Never. Why would you think that?" "Dad said you were upset because I didn't want you at my party. But I never said that. I wanted you. I told him." I breathed slowly, steadying my voice. "I know, and I believe you. Nothing you said or didn't say could make me stop loving you." His eyes shone. "Then will I see you? Even just for a little?" I hesitated, then said, "We'll find a way. Maybe not at the house, but somewhere safe." The line cut suddenly. Perhaps someone entered the room. The screen went black. I sat for a long time in silence, palms pressed together. Kara's note, Daniel's threats, Milo's small, trembling voice. They were threads of the same knot. But now I knew. Milo had not rejected me. The lie was Daniel's alone. At dusk, there was a sharp knock. Not polite, insistent. I opened the door to find Kara, perfectly groomed, raincoat belted tight. "Ruth," she said briskly, stepping inside without asking, "this has gone far enough." I remained seated. "Has it? You've embarrassed Daniel, upset Milo, and disrupted our entire household. Pulling your support without warning, it's reckless. And airing grievances through bank managers and strangers, It's unbecoming." Her voice was controlled, her eyes bright with fury. I sipped my tea before answering. "What's unbecoming is telling a grandmother her grandson didn't want her, when that was never true." She froze, then forced a smile. "Children say things in the heat of—" "No," I interrupted. "He called me. He told me the truth. He wanted me there. The lie was yours and Daniel's." The smile slipped. For a moment, her mask faltered. "You're destroying this family," she hissed. "No," I said evenly. "I'm saving what little of it is left for Milo." We stared at each other, silence heavy. Then she straightened, smoothed her coat, and moved toward the door. "You'll regret this. Don't expect to see Milo again if you keep this up." I watched her leave without a word. The door clicked shut, and I sat back, hands calm. I had heard threats before, from creditors, from bullies, from storms in men's voices. They had never broken me. I picked up the compass from the nightstand, set it on the table, and whispered, "North is not where fear points you. North is where you decide to walk." That night, I slept soundly for the first time since I arrived. The following morning, the air smelled of wet cedar and fresh asphalt. I walked out of the motel lobby with a small paper bag Nadia had pressed into my hand. 2 scones, still warm. She winked. "Eat before the world eats you." I sat on a bench near the lake, broke one in half, and let the crumbs fall for the ducks. My phone was still silent, turned face down. I had no appetite for Daniel's demands or Kara's threats. By mid-morning, I found myself walking past a brick elementary school, the one Milo attended. Children streamed through the doors in bright jackets. I lingered at the gate, pretending to watch the traffic. Then a woman in a red scarf approached. "You must be Milo's grandmother," she said softly. I turned, startled. She smiled. "I'm Denise, his teacher. We've met at a science fair a couple of years ago, remember?" I nodded slowly. Her eyes were steady, kind. She lowered her voice. "Milo talks about you often. He brought a little compass to show and tell last week, said his grandma gave it to him. He said it helps him know where he is, even when other people try to confuse him." My throat tightened. "Did he now?" She nodded. "He's a thoughtful boy, and he misses you. Whatever is happening with his parents, just know that he hasn't turned against you." Her words were balm. I thanked her, and she touched my arm briefly before walking away, blending back into the tide of children. I stood at the gate long after she'd gone. Milo had spoken about me. He had carried my compass into a classroom full of children, my quiet love in his pocket. Back at the motel, I found a message slipped under my door. In Daniel's hand, "Stop involving outsiders. You're making Milo unstable. Come home, Mom. End this nonsense." I set the note on the desk without touching it further. Outsiders. That was Daniel's fear, that truth might seep out beyond his curated walls. Around noon, I walked to the bank branch again. Claire Monroe, the young manager, greeted me. "Mrs. Alden, the trust documents are ready for your review." We sat in a small glass office. She explained the terms carefully, every clause and condition. "It's airtight," she said. "Milo alone benefits. No one else can touch these funds, not even if pressured." I signed each page with deliberate strokes. My name looked firmer than it had in years. When we finished, Claire hesitated. "Your son tried again this morning. He was angry. I wanted to be clear. Your accounts are protected. He has no authority anymore." "Thank you," I said. My voice sounded like stone in the small room. Leaving the bank, I felt the drizzle on my cheeks, cold, but clean. I had drawn a line Daniel could not cross, no matter how he threatened. Back at the motel, Nadia waved me inside the cafe. Sit, sit. You look like you've fought a war. Maybe I have, I said, sliding into a booth. She brought me soup, sat across with her own mug of tea. Families can be cruel in ways strangers never dare. My grandmother raised me. My mother called her stubborn. I called her brave. I think you're like her. I swallowed hard, grateful for her blunt kindness. The cafe door opened then, and I saw a small figure slip in. Milo, with a backpack too big for his shoulders. He spotted me and froze. Then he broke into a run. "Grandma!" His voice cracked with joy. He threw himself against me, arms tight around my waist. I felt his heartbeat, fast and certain. "I told Dad I was walking home with a friend," he whispered. "I wanted to see you." I stroked his hair, my throat burning. "Sweetheart, I'm so glad." He pulled back, eyes wide. "Why don't they want you at the house? Did I do something?" "No," I said firmly. "You did nothing. This is between grown-ups. It has nothing to do with you." He nodded, but the worry in his face made him look older than 8. "I like the compass," he whispered. "I keep it under my pillow." I kissed his forehead. "Then you'll never be lost." We sat together, sharing the second scone, talking about his science project. For half an hour, the world felt right again. When Nadia came by with a refill of tea, she winked at me. "Looks like you found your north." Milo grinned, not understanding the layers, but happy to be part of the secret. Later, I walked him halfway back toward the school so he could join his friend's route home. He hugged me again before running off. "Don't let them make you go away," he called. I stood in the drizzle, compass in my pocket, and whispered, "I won't." That night, Daniel's messages turned harsher. "You're poisoning Milo. You'll ruin him." But his words no longer bit. Milo himself had told me what mattered. The next page in my notebook read, "Step 2. Protect our meetings. Public spaces only. No secrets. No shame." I underlined it twice, then closed the book. Outside, the lake was dark, but I knew where north was. The rain eased into a mist by morning, thin enough that the air smelled of wet iron and pine. I wrapped a scarf around my neck, left the motel, and walked toward the waterfront. My body was stiff, but inside, I felt light. Milo's hug still lingered in my bones. Halfway along the boardwalk, I stopped for coffee. The barista with tattoos grinned. "Back again, Mrs. North Star." I raised an eyebrow. He laughed. "That's what Nadia called you yesterday. Said you carry a compass and a story." I smiled despite myself. The name felt less like a joke and more like a title I'd finally earned. I carried my cup outside, sat on a bench overlooking the gray water. I was halfway through when a shadow fell across me. Mom. Daniel. His coat was buttoned wrong, his face drawn tight. Kara stood just behind him, immaculate in her cream trench coat. The two of them looked like they'd been rehearsing on the walk over. I set the cup down calmly. "Daniel, Kara." He wasted no time. "This has to stop. Milo came home talking about seeing you." "Kara's furious. I'm furious. And you're confusing him." "Confusion," I said evenly, "comes from lies, not from truth." Kara's voice cut in, sharp and sweet. "Ruth, you're undermining our family. Whatever grievances you have, you don't drag a child into it." I met her gaze. "I didn't drag him anywhere. He found me. Because he needed me. That should tell you something." Daniel's fists clenched. "You don't understand the damage you're doing. He needs stability, not—" "He needs honesty," I interrupted. "And he knows I didn't reject him. He knows whose words those were. For a moment, silence. Then Kara's mask cracked. Her jaw tightened. She stepped closer. You're selfish. After all we've given you, I laughed softly. Given me? I've written checks for your house, your car, your debts. I've bought silence with money for years, but no more. Her face flushed crimson. People on the boardwalk had begun to slow, glancing curiously at us. Daniel noticed, shifted uncomfortably, lowered his voice. Mom, not here. Let's talk in private. No, I said. Private is where you erase me. Public is where I remain seen. Kara hissed. If you keep meddling, you won't see Milo at all. I rose then, slowly, but straight-backed. Listen carefully, both of you. I don't need your permission to love my grandson, and I don't need your approval to protect myself. I've cut the accounts, the payments, the leash. Milo's trust is already signed. You can't touch it. Daniel's face blanched. You? What? You heard me. Your emergencies are no longer mine. Your bills are no longer mine. My dignity is mine again. Kara's eyes darted to Daniel, searching for a script. He had none. I picked up my cup, took a calm sip, and turned toward the water. You can shout, threaten, or plead. It changes nothing. I'm done funding my disappearance. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Kara spun on her heel and stalked away. Daniel lingered, staring at me, jaw tight. You'll regret this, he muttered again, but his voice lacked weight. Perhaps, I said softly, but regret is lighter than shame. He followed his wife, their silhouettes shrinking against the mist. When they were gone, I sat again, shaking only slightly. Strangers had seen, but more importantly, I had seen myself. Not begging, not shrinking, not erased. Back at the motel, Nadia caught me in the lobby. You stood your ground, she said. How did you? She smiled. Word travels fast in small places. People saw, and they admired. I carried her words upstairs like a secret medal. That evening, my phone buzzed with a message. Not Daniel, not Kara. Milo. Just 2 words, typed in shaky letters. North, Grandma. I pressed the phone to my chest. Whatever storm Daniel and Kara brewed next, I knew this. Milo had chosen truth. And so had I. The morning after the boardwalk confrontation, the motel clerk slid a folded newspaper across the counter as I passed. Thought you might want to see this, he murmured. On the second page, a small column. Local couple's argument draws attention on waterfront. No names, but the description was unmistakable. A gray-haired woman refusing to leave, a younger couple walking away. I folded it carefully, slipped it into my bag. It wasn't shame I felt, it was clarity. I had not been invisible. By mid-morning, my phone was buzzing again. This time, not Daniel. A number from back east, Mr. Harris, my lawyer. Ruth, I've drafted your new will and the trust documents. All we need are your signatures when you return. Your son has no standing anymore. Good, I said simply. He paused, then added, I'm proud of you. Most clients your age want to avoid conflict. You've chosen dignity instead. I ended the call with tears prickling but unshed. Around noon, Nadia waved me into the cafe. She poured tea and leaned across the counter. You should know. Your son's wife came by this morning. Wanted to know if I'd seen you with Milo. I told her nothing. I nodded slowly. Thank you. She didn't like it, Nadia continued, shrugging. But her kind rarely likes no for an answer. I sat with my tea, hands steady. The war had left the house and entered the streets now. That afternoon, there was a knock at my door. Not sharp, not threatening, hesitant. When I opened it, an older man in a plaid jacket stood there. "Ma'am, forgive me. I live near your son. We've seen each other at the block parties. Name's Robert." I frowned, unsure. He cleared his throat. "I saw what happened on the boardwalk. Folks are talking. Some think you were harsh. Others, well, others think you were brave." I studied him. His voice was awkward, but there was no malice. "I only came to say," he added, "don't let them make you feel crazy. People see more than they admit." When he left, I closed the door gently. It startled me how much strength a stranger's simple words could carry. By evening, the threats began in earnest. A message from Daniel. "You've humiliated us. Milo's confused. If you keep pushing, we'll cut all contact." Another from Kara. "Last chance, Ruth. Come to dinner tomorrow, apologize, and we'll forgive." Forgive. The word landed like rusted iron, as though I were the offender, not the one exiled at the curb. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Claire at the bank. "Can you send confirmation of the trust account? In writing." "Of course, Mrs. Alden. I'll courier the documents." "Make them airtight. Milo's safety must be beyond reach." "It already is," she assured me. When I hung up, I laid my compass on the table. The needle quivered, found its line, and held. Later that night, I sat by the window, notebook open. I wrote, "Today I heard their threats. Tomorrow I will not bow. Each day a step further from fear." A knock startled me. I froze, then opened the door. Not Daniel, not Kara, Milo. Breathless, clutching his backpack. "Grandma," he whispered, eyes wide. "They're so mad. But I don't care. I just wanted to see you." I pulled him in, heart thudding. "Sweetheart, it's late." "How did you—" I told them I was sleeping over at a friend's. "I had to come. I had to tell you. I'm not confused. I know you love me." I cupped his face, felt the heat of truth radiating. "And I always will, no matter what they say." He pulled the compass from his pocket. "I keep it with me. It helps." I kissed his forehead, tears hot against my lashes. "Then you'll never be lost." We sat together in the dim room, two souls holding on to truth while the world outside tightened its noose. When he finally slipped away into the night, I stood at the window until he vanished down the street. The storm was gathering, I knew. But I also knew this. The storm could not take north from me. The next morning, the motel phone at the front desk rang for me. The clerk's voice was uneasy. "Mrs. Alden, your son was here. He wanted your room number." I didn't give it, but he wasn't pleased. I thanked him, hung up, and sat on the edge of the bed. The walls of the room hummed with the sound of pipes, the thin kind of hum that makes you think of a hive. Daniel was circling closer, more desperate. At 9, Claire from the bank arrived with an envelope. "Everything's finalized," she said. "Here's confirmation of Milo's trust, notarized, and a certified letter revoking your son's authority on your accounts. He has no power left." I took the envelope, heavy with paper, but light with freedom. "You've done more for me than my own blood," I whispered. She smiled gently. "Sometimes blood isn't thicker. Sometimes it's just heavier." When she left, I slid the documents into my suitcase under my blouses. Proof. Armor. By noon, a pounding shook my door. Daniel's voice boomed. "Mom, open up. We need to settle this now." I stood very still, hands flat against my thighs. He knocked again, harder. "If you don't come with me, you'll never see Milo again. I mean it." I opened the door just enough to face him. His eyes were red, his breath sharp with anger. "Daniel," I said quietly, "threats don't frighten me anymore. You already tried to erase me. You failed. You can cut me out of your life, but not Milo's heart." He leaned close, his face inches from mine. "You think you're clever with your bank tricks, but you've humiliated us. You've made Milo disobedient. Kara and I can't forgive this." I held his gaze. "Then don't forgive. Forgiveness is a gift, not a leash, and I'm not wearing it anymore." For a long moment he stared, trembling with rage. Then he spat. "You'll die alone in some motel room, and no one will even care." I shut the door on his words. The lock clicked. I leaned against the wood, not broken, just steady. Alone, yes, but not erased. The room was silent afterward, except for my breath. I picked up my notebook, wrote, "They cannot take what I have given freely. Milo's love, my dignity, my name." That evening, a text came, not from Daniel, but from a number I didn't know. It was a neighbor of theirs, a woman named Celeste. "I saw what happened this morning. You don't deserve this. If you ever need a safe place to see Milo, I'll help." Strangers again. Always the strangers holding me upright, where family refused. At dusk, Milo called. His voice was hushed. "Grandma, Dad's yelling a lot. Kara's crying. They say you hate us." My throat tightened. "No, darling, I don't hate anyone. I just won't let myself be used anymore." He sniffled. "They said if you don't stop, I can't see you." I steadied my voice. "Listen to me. Whatever they say, my love doesn't end. It's not a faucet. It's a river. And you will always have it." Silence, then a whisper. "I believe you." The call ended suddenly, but his words echoed long after. Later I walked down to the lake. The water was dark, stirred by the wind. I dropped a pebble in and watched the ripples spread. This was how truth moved, small at first, then wide, then unstoppable. When I returned, another note had been slid under my door. This one was Kara's, written in elegant script. "This is your last chance. Come to dinner tomorrow, apologize in front of Milo, or you will never see him again." I sat at the desk, laid the note beside my compass, and whispered, "You mistake me for someone who kneels." I tore the paper in half, then into quarters, and fed the pieces into the motel's trash bin. Tomorrow would come, with its threats and its theater. I was ready. North was steady. The next evening I dressed slowly, deliberately. A navy blouse, pressed slacks, the pearl earrings my husband gave me on our 30th anniversary. I brushed my hair twice, pinned it back with a silver clasp, and looked at myself in the mirror. Not glamorous, not young, but steady. The note Kara had left still echoed. "Come to dinner, apologize, or never see him again." They thought it was a summons, but I decided it would be a stage. Not for their play, but for my truth. I walked the mile to their house just before dusk. The windows glowed with light. Laughter floated faint through the glass. A banner still hung from Milo's birthday, sagging now, but cheerful. I paused at the gate, hand on the latch. My knees ached, my chest fluttered, but my spine held. When Kara opened the door, her smile was polished steel. "Ruth, you came." Daniel hovered behind her, jaw tight. Milo peeked from the hallway, eyes wide, and ran forward before Kara could stop him. "Grandma!" He clutched me around the waist. I bent down, kissed his hair. Kara cleared her throat. "Dinner's waiting. Let's talk." The table gleamed with china, candles flickering. They had staged it carefully, an audience of 2 adults and 1 boy, to witness my supposed apology. I sat at the far end, Milo beside me. Daniel and Kara faced us like prosecutors. Kara folded her hands. "Ruth, We invited you here so you could put this unpleasantness behind us. Milo deserves peace. We all do." Daniel leaned forward. "All we need is for you to acknowledge your behavior. Say you're sorry for undermining us. Then we can move forward as a family." I sipped my water, let the silence stretch. Milo's small hand found mine under the table. His palm was damp with nerves. Finally, I spoke. "No." Kara's smile froze. Daniel blinked. "Excuse me?" "I won't apologize for protecting myself. I won't apologize for stopping the endless flow of money. And I will not apologize for telling the truth, that Milo never rejected me. That lie was yours." The room chilled. Kara's voice sharpened. "Do you realize what you're doing? You're tearing this family apart." "No," I said calmly. "I'm refusing to be torn apart by it." Daniel slammed his palm on the table. "We gave you a home, a place at this table, and you repay us with betrayal." I leaned forward. "A home I paid for. A table my checks bought. Respect I never received. Do not twist generosity into debt." Kara's face reddened. "Milo, go to your room," she snapped. But Milo clung tighter to my hand. "No, she didn't do anything wrong." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Daniel's mouth opened, closed. Kara looked as if struck. I squeezed Milo's hand gently. "It's all right, sweetheart. Go upstairs now. We'll talk later." Reluctantly, he obeyed, casting one last glance over his shoulder. The moment he disappeared, I turned back to his parents. My voice was low, steady. "You may threaten me, isolate me, lie about me, but you will not erase me from his life. He knows the truth now, and children do not forget who held them steady." Daniel's anger sputtered. "If you walk out now, don't expect us to call." I rose slowly, pushing the chair back. "You've already stopped calling. I survived that silence. I'll survive again." Kara's voice broke, shrill. "Then you leave us no choice." I gathered my coat from the back of the chair, fastened it with deliberate care. "No, Kara. I gave you choices for years, every check, every favor, every silence. Tonight, I give myself one. I choose dignity." I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped into the cool night air. Behind me, voices rose, accusation, fury. But they were distant already, as if muffled by glass. At the gate, I paused. The stars were faint above the city haze. I touched the compass in my pocket. The needle trembled, then steadied. North was not behind me, but ahead. The morning after the dinner, I woke in the motel to a strange quiet. No pounding at the door, no buzzing phone, just the faint sound of gulls and the hum of traffic far off. I lay still, listening. Silence had always meant abandonment to me, but now it felt like freedom. On the small desk lay the torn note from Kara, the envelope of trust documents, and my compass. Proof of what I had ended, proof of what I had begun, proof of what still guided me. 3 relics of a war fought not with fists, but with choices. By mid-morning, the storm arrived, but not at my door. Instead, I heard it through the mouths of others. At the cafe, Nadia poured my tea and leaned close. "Your son and his wife were at the bank this morning, yelling in the lobby. Something about frozen accounts and missed payments. Everyone saw." I stirred my tea slowly. "They'll manage. Adults usually do, once they stop leaning on others' bones." She smiled. "You sound lighter." "I am," I admitted. Later that day, Claire from the bank called. "Mrs. Alden, your son attempted to withdraw from the joint account you once shared. The teller refused, of course. He left furious." "Let him rage," I said calmly. Paper cannot burn just because someone yells at it. That evening, Milo called from his friend's phone. His whisper was urgent. "Grandma, Dad's mad all the time now. Mom keeps saying it's your fault, but I know it's not." I closed my eyes. "It isn't your fault either, darling. Don't carry what isn't yours." He sniffled. "Are you leaving soon?" "Yes," I said softly, "but the trust is ready. Your future is safe, and I will always be just a phone call away." "I'll keep the compass," he whispered. "Good," I said. "It will never lie to you." The line went silent, but his breathing stayed, soft and steady. I listened as though it were music. When I returned to the motel lobby, the clerk handed me a stack of messages. Some from Daniel, all ignored. One, however, was from a woman named Celeste, the neighbor who had once spoken kindly to me. "If you need a place to see Milo, my door is open. You're not alone." I sat in the quiet room, reading that line over and over. Not alone. The next morning, I walked to the post office, mailed a letter to Mr. Harris with copies of the bank documents. Inside, I wrote, "Let the record show. My name remains my own, my choice is intact." In the afternoon, I passed by Daniel's street. His car was in the driveway, hood open, him bent over the engine with movements sharp and frantic. Kara stood on the porch, phone pressed to her ear, voice tight. The glossy house looked less like triumph now, more like burden. I did not slow my steps. At the corner, I saw Milo's face at the upstairs window. His hand lifted, small against the glass. I raised mine in return. Two signals crossing a chasm, enough to say, "I am still here." Back at the motel, I wrote in my notebook, "They scramble now, counting bills, blaming shadows. I sit still, counting only what matters. My breath, my spine, my love for a boy who knows north from lies." That night, I treated myself. A taxi ride downtown, a small Italian restaurant with candles on every table. I ordered a single glass of wine, a plate of pasta, and sat alone without shame. The waiter asked if I was waiting for anyone. "No," I said. "I'm already here." He smiled politely, not understanding. But I understood. When I returned to the motel, the air smelled of rain. My phone lit up once more. Another message from Daniel. "You'll regret what you've done. We'll never forgive you." I powered the phone off. Regret belonged to yesterday. Forgiveness was not theirs to ration. Tonight, I had pasta, wine, and the steady hum of my own heart. For the first time in years, I slept without dreams. 2 days later, I packed my suitcase. The sailboat quilt on the motel bed was neatly folded, the small desk cleared except for my notebook and compass. Seattle had given me bruises and clarity in equal measure. It was time to return home. At the airport, I sat by the window watching planes rise into a gray sky. For years, I had flown across the country carrying checks, casseroles, and open hands. This time, I carried only papers of my own choosing. Bank statements, trust documents, my updated will draft, waiting at home. Armor disguised as folders. On the plane, I sipped water and thought about Milo. His hand at the window, his whisper through the phone, "North, Grandma." The words warmed me more than any blanket. When I landed back east, the air smelled of salt and pine. My house was waiting, modest but mine. The porch creaked as always. The kitchen light hummed. Loneliness was there, yes, but it was honest loneliness, not the kind you feel at a table where you're unwanted. The next morning, I met with Mr. Harris in his wood-paneled office. His glasses were thick now, his beard whiter, but his voice remained precise. "Mrs. Alden, he said, sliding a folder toward me. Here are the documents. The irrevocable trust for Milo, the updated will, and the revocation of Daniel's authority. Once you sign, everything is final. I read each page carefully. My pen did not tremble as I signed. When I was done, he gathered the documents and leaned back. It's not easy, cutting ties with family. It's easier than being strangled by them, I said. He gave a small, approving nod. Your husband would be proud. You've chosen strength. I left the office lighter, as though the years of being bent under obligation had finally been lifted. At the grocery store afterward, I filled my basket only with what I wanted. Fresh apples, a small loaf of bread, a wedge of cheese. No extra snacks for grandchildren, no ingredients for Kara's endless remodel dinners. Just food for one woman who had earned her own table. That evening, I set the table with one plate, one glass, one candle. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. For once, the quiet did not sting. Later, the phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Grandma? Milo's voice. My heart leapt. How did you— Aunt Sarah gave me your number, he whispered. She said I could call if I ever needed you. I pressed the phone close. You can always call, Milo. Always. He was silent for a moment, then said softly, I told Dad, I don't care if you fight. You're still my grandma. That doesn't change. Tears slid hot down my cheeks, but my voice stayed steady. And you'll always be my Northfinder. Nothing will change that. We talked until his voice grew sleepy. Homework, friends, the science fair coming up. Ordinary things. Blessedly ordinary. After he hung up, I sat in the dark living room with only the candle still flickering. For the first time in decades, I felt not like a supporting character in someone else's play, but the author of my own. Before bed, I opened my notebook and wrote, Today I signed my freedom. Today my grandson called me by choice. Today I remembered. Silence can be dignity, not exile. I closed the book, set the compass beside it, and turned out the light. The house sighed around me, old wood and memory. It was not empty. It was mine. The quiet days could not last forever. I knew that. People like Daniel and Kara don't let silence stand. They rush to fill it with noise, with pressure, with theater. It was late afternoon when the knock came. Not the neighborly kind. Heavy, deliberate. I opened the door to find Daniel standing on my porch, his shoulders slumped, hair unkempt. For a moment he looked less like a man and more like a boy caught in a lie. Mom, he said, voice low. We need to talk. I stepped aside, gesturing to the kitchen. He sat stiff at the table, fingers drumming on the wood. We're in trouble, he began. Mortgages behind, bills piling up. Milo's tuition. He stopped, watching my face for a flicker of sympathy. I stayed still. Daniel, you've had good jobs. Kara sells houses for more than I make in a year. You can manage. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. We built everything expecting, counting on your support. You can't just cut it off without warning. I leaned forward, voice even. I warned you the night you told me Milo didn't want me. That lie ended more than just a dinner. It ended the illusion that my role was to carry you. He flinched, then pressed on. Kara says if you'd just apologize, we could put this behind us. She's willing to forgive. I almost laughed. Forgive? For what? For reclaiming what's mine? For refusing to pay for contempt? His eyes flashed. You're being cruel. Milo's caught in the middle. No, I said softly. You put him in the middle when you used his name to push me out. He called me Daniel. He told me the truth. He wanted me there. It was never his rejection. It was yours." For a moment, silence. His face cracked, raw. "I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said," I interrupted. "The cruelty wasn't an accident. But listen to me now. I won't bankroll cruelty. Not again." He dropped his gaze, staring at his hands. For the first time, there was no anger, only something like shame. Finally, he muttered, "We might lose the house." I folded my hands. "Then you'll learn what every grown person learns, how to live within your own means. You will survive. You might even grow." He lifted his head, searching my face for softness. There was none left to give. When he stood, his movements were heavy. At the door, he paused. "You've changed," he said. I nodded. "No, Daniel. I've returned to myself." He left without another word. I watched from the window as his car rolled away, the weight of his own choices pressing down at last. That evening, Milo called again. His voice was quiet, but urgent. "Grandma, Dad's different today. He didn't yell. He just sat at the table, quiet. Mom's furious, though. She says you're breaking us." I closed my eyes, steadying my voice. "Sweetheart, families break themselves when they mistake love for debt. Remember that." "I will," he whispered. Then, almost shyly, "I'm proud of you." I pressed the phone to my chest after the call ended, tears sliding hot and certain. Later, I wrote in my notebook, "Today, he came with empty hands and old habits. I gave him nothing but truth. And truth is more valuable than all the checks I ever wrote." The compass lay beside me, its needle steady in the lamplight. North was closer now. Not a direction anymore, but a state of being. The last Sunday of summer was warm enough to open the windows. My little house filled with the sound of crickets in the grass and the smell of apples cooling on the counter. I had baked another pie, half for me, half for Mrs. Connolly next door. The rhythm of my days had become simple, but within that simplicity was a kind of triumph. On the mantel sat the compass. I no longer carried it everywhere. I didn't need to. North had taken root inside me. My husband used to say, "Dignity is quieter than shame, but it lasts longer." I understood that now. Daniel hadn't called again. Kara hadn't written. The silence stretched, but it no longer wounded. They had their house, their debts, their storms. I had my peace. Milo still called in whispers, sometimes late at night, sometimes from a friend's phone. His voice carried secrets and laughter. His volcano project, his soccer game, his wish that one day I'd come watch. Each call was a reminder that the bond between us hadn't been severed, only tested. Children know who stands steady for them. I sat on the porch that evening, pie cooling beside me, and thought of the long road I'd walked. From that curb in Seattle where my son told me to go back, to this quiet chair where no one could send me away. The distance between those places was not measured in miles, but in choices. I thought of all the checks I had written, the silences I had swallowed, the corners of myself I had given up for the illusion of belonging. They were gone now, spent, like paper burned to ash. What remained was not bitterness, but clarity. The crickets sang louder as the sky deepened. A breeze lifted the leaves. I whispered into the dusk, "I am not erased. I am not a ledger. I am Ruth Alden, and I am enough." For the first time in years, the words didn't feel like defiance. They felt like truth. When darkness fell, I lit a single candle in the kitchen, poured myself a cup of tea, and sliced into the pie. The crust broke with a soft crack, steam rising. I set one half aside for my neighbor and carried the other plate to the table. My table, my choice, my life. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. No waiting for an invitation, no watching for someone else's approval. Just the quiet joy of being here, alive, steady. Before bed, I opened my notebook one last time and wrote, "This chapter ends not with loss, but with dignity. I cannot change the way others see me, but I can refuse to vanish, and I can leave behind not money, not property, but the truth that I chose to stand." I closed the notebook, set the compass on top, and blew out the candle. The night held me gently. Alone, yes, but not diminished. If this story spoke to you, if it reminded you of your own strength, then remember, dignity is never too late to reclaim. You do not need permission to choose yourself. You do not need approval to be seen. Follow, share, or simply carry these words with you. Somewhere, someone else needs the reminder. North is not where they point you. North is where you decide to stand. The days settled into a rhythm once I returned home. Morning tea on the porch, the sound of sparrows fussing in the hedges, the quiet tick of the kitchen clock. My house was modest, worn in places, but every board belonged to me. No one could push me out. I began tending small things I had ignored for years. I polished the silver frame of my wedding photo, dusted the shelves where books had stood untouched, mended the hem of an old cardigan. Ordinary tasks, yet each felt like a declaration. I am still here. Neighbors noticed. Mrs. Connolly from across the street knocked one morning with a basket of apples. "Saw your light on late last night," she said. "Thought you might like company." We sat in my kitchen peeling apples for a pie. She spoke about her arthritis. I spoke about the weather. And under it all, there was something steady. Two women, reminding each other that solitude is not the same as being forgotten. At the library, I picked up novels I had once postponed reading. The young librarian offered to carry them out to my car. When I declined, he said with a grin, "You look stronger than most of us." It was said lightly, but it stayed with me all afternoon. In the evenings, I walked the neighborhood. Children rode bicycles past, their laughter like bells. A few called out, "Hi, Mrs." Alden. Children I had once baked cookies for. Their parents waved from porches. None of them knew the storm I'd left behind, yet their small gestures stitched me back into the fabric of life. Meanwhile, letters arrived from the lawyer. The trust confirmed, the will filed. My estate now stood like a fortress around Milo, untouchable. I kept the documents in a wooden box beneath my bed, next to my husband's watch. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped me in the grocery store. "I saw your son last week," she said cautiously. "He looked harried. They say the mortgage company's been calling." I nodded, but didn't answer. Pity was not what I felt, only distance. Their troubles were no longer mine. That evening, Milo called again, this time from his friend's house, where the line crackled. "Grandma, Dad says you're selfish," he whispered. But I told him I don't care. "You always listen to me. That's not selfish." I swallowed hard. "Listening is love, Milo. And I will always listen." He told me about a science project, a model volcano. When it erupted in class, everyone screamed. It was amazing. His laughter bubbled through the phone, unguarded and free. I closed my eyes, letting it wash over me. After he hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, pen poised over my notebook. I wrote, "I used to measure my worth in checks written, debts forgiven, silences endured. Now I measure it in apples peeled, books read, calls from a boy who still believes in me, The scale is lighter, but it is mine. I placed the compass beside the page. The needle wavered, then steadied north, as always. For years, I had been afraid of becoming irrelevant. Now I understood. Relevance was not in their hands. It was in mine. That night, I baked the apple pie and carried half of it to Mrs. Connolly. She laughed, surprised. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," I said, and I realized the difference between those two truths could fill a lifetime. When I returned home, the kitchen smelled of cinnamon. I cut myself a slice, sat by the window, and ate slowly. Alone, yes, but for the first time in decades, not diminished.